I never imagined my life would change when a poor boy helped the millionaire's daughter walk again. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. It started as just another chilly morning. The sun barely broke through the clouds, casting a dull gray over our little town. I was hurrying to catch the bus when I heard her scream. The sound sliced through the air, raw and desperate. A sound that made the hair on my arms stand. I turned, heart racing. There she was. Eliza Harper, the golden girl. The one everyone wanted to be. She was sprawled on the ground, her jeans torn and a look of shock on her face. For a moment, she seemed like a fragile porcelain doll, the kind that could shatter with just one wrong move. The crowd was thickening around her, whispers swirling, eyes wide with a mix of curiosity and horror. I pushed my way through. I felt my heart pounding in my chest. It should have been someone else. Someone qualified. But as I knelt beside her, I could see the pain twisting her features. "Help me," she gasped, tears pooling in her eyes. I knew she was the one with the perfect life. The one who glided through the halls with a smile, with her designer bags and expensive shoes. But now, here she was, vulnerable. I reached out, trembling hands brushing against her knee. "Eliza, just stay still," I whispered, my voice shaky. She looked at me. I looked and I saw just a hint of fear mixed with disbelief. Did I really think I could help her? I was just a nobody. A boy from the wrong side of the tracks. And yet, at that moment, I felt an undeniable pull. "Help is on the way." Someone shouted from behind us, but I knew that wasn't enough. I would help her. Somehow. I needed to. As time slowed, I could feel the weight of the crowd pressing in, their judgment palpable. Why was I, of all people, kneeling before Eliza? I could hear muffled gasps and see the phones popping out, capturing this unexpected twist in our lives. This wasn't supposed to happen. Not today. Not like this. The tension in the air was electric. In one swift moment, the rich and the poor collided. This was more than an accident, it felt like a prelude to something bigger. The whispers turned into murmurs of disbelief. "What's he doing there?" I heard someone mutter. The sirens wailed in the distance, but they felt like they were coming from another world, a world where perfect lives didn't shatter in a heartbeat. I looked back at Eliza. Her face was drenched in confusion, and then something shifted deep in her eyes. Hope? Desperation? Suddenly, I felt like I mattered, even if just for a fleeting moment, but then it happened. As I tried to help her sit up, I felt a sharp jab of pain in my wrist. I looked down to see a jagged piece of glass embedded. My heart dropped. The ground wasn't just cold, it was unforgiving. Wasn't my sacrifice supposed to make a difference? Eliza's voice pierced through my haze. "Please don't let go." I couldn't bear the thought of her slipping away. My blood pooled around us, contrasting starkly with the dull ground, a poignant reminder of this spiraling reality. In that pivotal moment, I realized that this wasn't just about helping her. It was about the intertwined fates of two unlikely souls. Who would have thought that I, an invisible boy, could hold the power to change her story? As the flashing lights finally approached, everything felt surreal and unclear. But who was really the rescuer here? I couldn't shake the feeling that something deeper was at play. What had just begun could shake the foundations of our lives forever. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The ambulance screeched to a halt, tires burning against the asphalt, and the doors swung open. Paramedics flooded towards us, like angels arriving to rescue wayward spirits. For a split second, I felt relief wash over me, but it quickly faded as the sound of their footsteps seemed to thud like the ticking of a clock. It was a reminder that time was running out, not just for Eliza but for me, too. That I could see their faces as they approached, their expressions shifting sharply from urgency to disbelief. They recognized the girl on the ground, the shimmering star of our town, and the boy crouching beside her, surrounded by the remnants of my own vulnerability. I could feel their scrutiny, the unspoken questions swirling not just about Eliza's state but about mine. The dirty shoes, the scruffy jeans, the blood staining my hands. "Sir, step aside, please," one of the paramedics barked, directing me away from Eliza. I obeyed, stepping back but unable to tear my eyes away from her. The world spun in a surreal haze as they worked around us, their bright uniforms stark against the gray morning. Every touch, every word exchanged felt like threads of a larger tapestry, weaving together fate. "Stay with me, Eliza," a paramedic urged gently while he assessed her injuries. I could see the panic rising in her eyes, and it struck a chord deep within me. I reached out, just a fingertip grazing her palm. For just a flicker of a moment, she squeezed back, as if to say, "I'm here." But before I could grasp it, that connection was shattered as they moved her onto a gurney. That I stood frozen, engulfed by an overwhelming cloud of guilt and fear. I had thought I could help her, but all I had done was make things worse. The sirens wailed again, echoing in my heart, drowning out everything else. Just when I thought I could breathe, another paramedic gestured for me to step back, and I staggered, the walls closing in. "Is she going to be okay?" I shouted, though the sound felt like it was swallowed by the chaos surrounding us. "Sir, we're doing everything we can," the medic replied, eyes focused on Eliza. There wasn't enough assurance in their voice to calm the tempest within me. Then the world tipped, and I felt sick at the pit of my stomach. Who was I? I was just a boy who had stumbled into the wrong narrative, a side character in a story I had never hoped to be part of. A wave of despair washed over me as I realized that a moment of courage could lead to infinite regrets, and maybe I wasn't meant to be her knight after all. And yet, as the ambulance doors slammed shut, sealing her away from view, something unexpected happened. A soft tap on my shoulder broke the fog around me. I turned to see Mr. Jenkins, the old man who lived on the corner with his scruffy dog. In his gnarled hands was a warm cup of coffee, steaming gently against the cold. "Here, son, take this," he said, his gentle eyes searching mine. "You did what you could, why would you care?" I asked, shocked. Just none of that," he interrupted, his voice raspy but soothing. "You're more than what you think. You showed kindness when nobody else would." He gestured to the gathering crowd. Some had already begun to disperse, returning to their mundane lives as if nothing had happened. I took the cup he offered, my fingers curling around the warmth, and in that moment, a small flicker of hope ignited within me, a reminder that compassion could grow even in the darkest moments. But it was short-lived. As I turned back to the road, my heart sank. What if this was my destiny, to always stand on the sidelines, forever an observer in my own life? Would I ever break free from the weight of other people's expectations? Suddenly, my phone buzzed loudly in my pocket, shattering my thoughts. It was a text from Sam, my closest friend. "Where are you? I heard about the accident. Are you okay?" As I read the message, dread pooled in my stomach. I didn't want to talk about what had just happened, not yet. I was still grappling with the echo of that scream, the weight of Eliza's hope resting within my hands. In that moment, I felt a powerful urge to reply, to explain how everything had changed. But who would believe it? The lines between hero and villain blurred as I struggled to find the words. Just as I was about to text him back, I looked up to see Eliza's father emerging from the shadows, his face ashen and fierce emotion radiating from him like an electric current. "Where is my daughter?" he barked, his voice cutting through the lingering fog of the morning. My heart raced, and I suddenly found myself standing before the embodiment of wealth and privilege. This was a man who had never needed anything from people like me, and I could only imagine the waves of fury and fear coursing through him. Panic gripped me as I stumbled to find the right words. How could I explain that I had tried to help her? That, despite my best intentions, I had caused more harm? Before I could utter a single sound, his gaze locked onto mine, piercing and desperate. Did you hurt her? He demanded, voice trembling. The accusation hung heavy, and a world of meaning swirled within that one question. I opened my mouth, but no words came. Was this the reckoning I feared? The moment that would redefine everything I believed about my purpose in this life? In those eyes, I no longer saw a $1 million mansion, private planes, or sparkling events. I saw a father who was losing his daughter and the unbearable weight of that loss. I stood trembling, realizing how fragile the divide between us had become, the gossamer thread woven by circumstance, and just like that, the chapters of our lives flickered before me, two tales aimed at collision. I had tried to stand up, but now I was falling. Falling deeper into confusion, and an unforgiving truth. In this moment, we were both lost, and only the storm with its unyielding winds could predict where we would land. The air was heavier now, thick with unspoken fears and realities that clawed at my insides. I stood before Eliza's father, a man whose presence seemed to darken the morning light. His eyes were stormy, and I was caught in the tempest, every heartbeat a reminder of the precariousness of life, like a candle flickering in a gusty wind. Please, I managed to stammer, my voice cracking under the weight of his scrutiny. I didn't mean to what? He interrupted, his face close to mine, the rawness of his emotions spilling out like sunlight after a long night. Hurt her? Make everything worse? Because I'll tell you, boy, that's what it looks like. A throng of onlookers remained, their gazes lingering on us like moths attracted to a flame. All I wanted was to turn the world around me to silence, to cocoon myself in an invisible shield where I didn't have to feel the heat of his anger. But I couldn't. Not when Eliza, the girl with laughter like a song and eyes that sparkled like the night sky, lay on a gurney fighting for her life. I tried to help her, I said almost desperately. She was choking, and I just reacted. I thought you thought. His words were sharp daggers that cut into my frail story. You thought it was better to intervene? Do you have any idea what kind of trouble you've put her in? With every syllable, I felt myself shrink. I wasn't the hero in this tale, I was the accidental villain, a poor boy with dirty shoes, tethered to the ruin of someone so precious. But there was something else spiraling around, a flicker of a thought that maybe meant more than despair. Did kindness still matter, even wrapped in this painful reality? The paramedics were still in the background, voices overlapping as they coordinated efforts to stabilize Eliza. Each sound felt like another clap of thunder, sequentially matching the beats of my heart. Suddenly, I saw a movement from the corner of my eye. A figure, a girl with wild hair, approached us. It was Mia, a classmate of mine. I had shared a few laughs and lunches with her, but nothing profound until now. Mr. Hayes? She called gently, her voice a balm over the harshness brewing in the air. She stepped forward, a tentative bridge between chaos and understanding. Can I talk to him? Please. I looked at Mia with confusion. Didn't she see how precarious my situation was? Still, she stepped boldly into the fray, turning to the father, her demeanor suddenly fierce. Sir, it's not what you think. He wasn't being reckless. Eliza wouldn't want you to punish him for trying to help her. Her words surprised even me and struck a chord deep within the tangle of my emotions. It felt surreal, this moment of solidarity. Where I had expected blame, here was someone placing herself in the crosshairs of tension, not just for me, but for Eliza, fighting her own battle. That I can't believe you all, Mr. Hayes spat, gaze flickering between us. This isn't some game. My daughter is lying there, and you, sir, listen, Mia pleaded, an unexpected authority in her voice. We're all scared. But I know Eliza wouldn't want us to tear each other down. She has always believed in second chances, in helping those who need it. A silence followed, potent and charged, like the lull before thunder. I could see a flicker of uncertainty cross Mr. Hayes' face, the lines of fury replacing the contours of fear momentarily blurred. But then, with a shake of his head, he turned away sharply, walking towards the ambulance as if retreating from the crushing weight of vulnerability. He was unraveling, and yet, in that retreat, I felt a small part of my heart crack open, like the sun daring to peek from behind storm clouds. "Don't let him take this from you," Mia whispered, her voice close to my ear as she turned to me. "You tried. You truly did. That matters. Please don't forget that." For a fleeting moment, I dared to hold on to her words, like a lifebuoy tossed in turbulent waters. I wasn't alone. I didn't have to be just a spectator in my own story. As the ambulance roared back to life, preparing to race Eliza to the hospital, dread pulled at my chest once more. In the ebb and flow of emotions, a bombshell landed in the pit of my stomach when I saw the paramedics step aside, a brief moment of stillness before they barreled out of sight with the love of a father burning the air behind them. "Did anyone think to call her mother?" I murmured, uncertainty unfurling the fabric of my thoughts. I had heard about Eliza's parents, how they were often absent, each married to their own careers. But in my heart, I felt an icy sliver of panic as I realized a new wave of uncertainty washed over me. What if her mother didn't know? What if she didn't come? The world dimmed around me, and I could feel myself slipping beneath the surface. What if they don't make it? I stammered, my breath hitching at the possibility, but Mia dashed the idea away, her eyes glistening with resolve. "They will find a way. Love will bring them back together. It always does, right?" And just as hope began to blossom, a shadow of doubt crossed my mind. What if love wasn't enough in this world? What if Eliza's father was right about my accidental role in this tragedy? What if the love I clung to was simply an illusion, ready to shatter? I reached into my pocket, clutching my phone tightly, and for the first time, I felt the suffocating weight of isolation. As I stood there, MIA's encouragement fading, the crowd dispersing, a dark thought pulsed beneath the surface. What if this was only the beginning of a far more treacherous journey? Just as the emergency lights flickered away, illuminating the road ahead, a text buzzed again in my pocket. I read Sam's words a second time, and that buzzing turned into a haunting rhythm, echoing my fears aloud. "Are you sure you're okay?" As I stared into the void where Eliza had once stood, I knew those words would never be enough to capture the chaos stirring within my heart. Whatever was to come, nothing could prepare me for the storm looming ahead, one that would redefine the very essence of who I was meant to be. The echo of sirens faded into the distance, leaving behind the ghost of urgency that gripped me harder than the chill of autumn air. I stood rooted to the pavement, watching the world peel away in slow motion as people dispersed. Their concerned whispers and pointed looks melded into a dull hum in my ears. All I could think about was the uncomfortable weight of shame that clung to my skin, making me feel like a stranger in my own body. "Are you coming?" MIA's gentle voice broke through the fog, pulling me back into the present. She stood beside me, her expression a mixture of concern and determination. Her wild hair danced in the breeze, an unpredictable spark in a world that felt increasingly dull. I don't know. My voice was barely above a whisper, the uncertainty curling around me tighter than my own thoughts. Every instinct screamed at me to flee, to escape the suffocating reality that I had somehow contributed to Eliza's plight. But deep down, I felt that leaving would only magnify the ache in my heart. Mia took a step closer, her kindness an anchored boat in stormy seas. "Eliza needs us. Her fight isn't over yet. She has you in her corner." I swallowed hard. What if this was my fault? What if I messed everything up for her? "Listen," she said, her voice firm yet soothing, "you didn't do anything wrong. You acted out of instinct. Love can get messy, but it's also the most powerful thing in the world." As she spoke, I could see the hint of vulnerability in her eyes, the sincerity that transcended our fleeting acquaintance. In that moment, I recognized a shared connection of two souls grappling with their own fears. I took a breath, allowing her words to wash over me like a balm meant to soothe raw wounds. "Let's go to the hospital," Mia suggested, her determination sparking something within me. We began walking, each step heavy with unspoken worries and palpable anxiety, yet as I moved beside her, the warmth of her resolve began to seep into my bones. The hospital loomed ahead, its stark facade a reminder of the fragility of life. The fluorescent lights pierced through the glass doors like searchlights illuminating a stark landscape of hope and despair. I hesitated, the tremor in my hands betraying my inner turmoil. Moments like these felt monumental, instances of reckoning when the weight of decisions grew unbearable. But I refused to yield. Eliza deserved everything we could give her, even if we were both just kids stumbling forward, uncertain. Inside, the fluorescent lights buzzed and the sterile scent of antiseptic hit me like a wall. I spotted Mr. Hayes pacing in front of the reception area, his shoulders hunched with defeat. The sight of him punctured my heart anew. This was not only Eliza's fight, it was a family united by love straining under pressure, each strand in the tapestry fraying under the weight of worry and fear. Tension wound tightly in my chest as I approached him cautiously, Mia at my side. He barely acknowledged us, his focus solely on the nurse who was engaging in whispered conversation with a doctor nearby. Mr. Hayes? I ventured, my voice shaky with the weight of my own insecurities. He turned, his expression a mix of fear and exhaustion, and as our eyes met, I prepared for his anger to spill over once more. But instead, something shifted beneath the surface, a slight crack in his armor. Is Eliza going to be okay? I asked, words tumbling out in a breathless rush. The pause that followed seemed to stretch for an eternity before he replied. We're doing everything we can. Her mother should be here soon. His voice cracked, and in that moment, I saw a glimmer of vulnerability within him. The man I had experienced as an unyielding fortress appeared human, raw, and lost a reflection of my own turmoil. The idea that Eliza's recovery depended on our collective strength bounced around in my head like an unresolved melody. Please, whatever it takes, she has to make it, I murmured, my throat tight. She's strong. She will come through. Mia placed a steadying hand on my back, whispering words of encouragement as if sensing my internal fracture. But just as that spark of hope began to ignite, the sliding doors burst open. A woman stormed in, elegant and poised in her tailored outfit, but her face bore the telling signs of distress. It was Eliza's mother. An unflinching sigh escaped her lips as she rushed toward her husband, her heels clicking against the floor, a sound both grounding and alarming. They exchanged hurried words, a flurry of concern intermingled with confusion as she recognized the depth of the situation. What happened? She asked, her eyes flickering with a fierce intensity as she searched for answers. Mr. Hayes, caught in the emotional storm that had so recently surged between us, attempted to explain but choked on the words that should have flowed easily. It was evident the turmoil within him was matched by the hurricane brewing in her expression. I felt helpless, as if the walls of the hospital were closing in, pressing down on me with the weight of expectations and fears. But as I watched, something shifted in her demeanor. She turned, her penetrating gaze landing on me. You were there? Ma'am, my voice wavered, caught between the need to confess and the fear of further complicating an already unbearable moment, and then it happened, the unexpected twist that redefined everything. You were trying to help her, weren't you? The softness in her tone was unexpected. Instead of anger or accusation, I found concern. Eliza needs all the love we can muster right now. As her words enveloped me, the walls around my heart started to crumble, exposing a fragile hope that had nearly extinguished. In the darkness, I saw a flicker of light, the fragile flame of solidarity against the ocean of uncertainty. But then, just as I began to believe the storm might pass, a doctor emerged with a grave look. My heart plummeted as he approached the Hayes family, the gravity of his gait heavy with foreboding. He gestured towards the waiting room, the very air around us changing. Dread pooled at the base of my spine, and I felt myself teetering on the edge of something monumental. Whatever was to come, all of us stood at a precipice, waiting for the next wave to crash, as if at any moment, time itself could become unmoored. And as I stood there, my breath caught in my throat, an explosive revelation echoed in my mind. This was only the beginning. The room was thick with anticipation, the kind that tastes metallic on the tongue and coats the heart with an unsettling dread. The doctor paused just feet away from the haze, his face a mask of professionalism that failed to mask the weight of his words. I felt MIA's hand clutch mine, her fingers intertwining with a silent promise that we would face whatever came together. Mr. And Mrs. Hayes, we need to talk about Eliza's condition, the doctor began, his voice calm yet devoid of warmth, as if the directness was meant to cushion the blow that was coming. The air around us had gone still, the quiet swelling with the potential of despair. I fought against the fluttering in my chest, every instinct screaming for me to turn away, to distance myself from the onslaught of emotions swirling around us. But I couldn't. Not now. I steadied my breath, silently urging Eliza's family on as their world hung in precarious balance. Her injuries are serious. She has sustained multiple fractures and a severe concussion. Right now, we are focusing on stabilizing her, he explained, his words lingering like shadows in the air, casting a pall over all of us. Mia squeezed my hand tighter, and I could feel her pulse race, mirroring the chaos in my heart. The destiny of Eliza felt tangled with our own. She had become a part of our narrative, a thread woven into the very fabric of our lives. As the doctor continued his diagnosis, all I could focus on was Mr. Hayes, whose expression morphed before me. Wrinkles deepened around his eyes, the light in them dimming. In the face of uncertainty, I recognized the depth of a father's love, and it stirred something deep within me, a resonance of my own fears about love, loss, and the fragility of the human experience. Years of our evolving relationship began to unravel in my mind. I remembered the carefree laughter of summer days spent swimming at the lake, Eliza's radiance illuminating every moment. Could this beautiful girl so full of life and spirit really be fighting for her own? Mrs. Hayes inhaled sharply, her composure cracking like a fragile glass under pressure. But she's going to come through this, right? The tremor in her voice echoed in all of our hearts. For a split second, I could see inside her what she was facing was not just worry for Eliza but also the shattering fear of losing her child, a fear so raw it painted her features in a desperate hue. The next 48 hours are critical, the doctor replied, his voice unwavering yet grave. We will do everything in our power, but we need to prepare for the possibility of complications. Complications. The word felt like a death sentence. I wanted to scream, to lash out against the universe for its capacity to take so much from us in one swift motion. Who were we to be confronted with such finality? The unfairness clung to me like a damp blanket, suffocating my thoughts. Just then, a brilliance of light pierced through the shadow enveloping us, an unexpected presence that teetered between complete disbelief and heartwarming empathy. A young nurse in scrubs, her features gentle yet earnest, approached us. She introduced herself as Claire and exuded a genuine warmth that felt like a soft embrace in the storm. I know this is a difficult time, she said, her voice a soothing balm, but I promise you that we are working tirelessly to ensure the best care for Eliza. If there's anything I can do to keep you updated or provide support, please don't hesitate to ask. Her kindness shifted something in the atmosphere, and as if she had plugged us back into hope, I felt the faint but undeniable pulse of possibility reverberate through the room. The despair didn't disappear, but at least for a fleeting moment, it didn't feel as insurmountable. But then the moment shattered as suddenly as it had formed, and the reality crashed upon us again. Claire stepped away, and the hush returned, thick with our unspoken fears. I looked back toward the haze when they turned to me again with softened expressions. Thank you for being here, Mr. Hayes said, his voice quieter, which left room for gratitude where I had expected anger or resentment. I nodded, steeling myself against the tide of emotion washing over me, yet, in the midst of fragile hope, a new pang of anxiety stirred within me. I had left something unfinished when Eliza first collapsed. The small argument we shared echoed persistently. It had been over something trivial, something that now felt painfully trivial in the grand scheme of life and death. I thought of her last words, the hurt, the way she had looked at me as if I were a stranger. What if she didn't know how deeply she was loved? What if that last moment defined our relationship forever? As if reading my thoughts, Mia turned to me, a frown etched across her delicate features. Well, work through this. She knows you care, she whispered, as if the words were the very antidote to my spiraling doubt. I clung to them like a lifeline, but just then, a sudden commotion broke through the haunting silence. The sliding doors burst open again, and in rushed another figure, one I did not expect to see. Eliza's estranged brother, Thomas, whose absence had been a long-standing rift in their family. I had heard he was aloof, consumed by his own ambitions in the tech world. My mind raced, questioning his intentions, torn between a sense of dread and desperation. "Where is she?" he yelled, his voice cutting through the din like a knife. The pain in his eyes mirrored that of the rest of us, but unlike anyone else, he bore the weight of guilt alongside grief. Here it was, an unwelcome revelation crashing into our already tumultuous moment, another layer of complexity intertwined with Eliza's plight. The last thing we needed was a family feud erupting like a powder keg in the middle of chaos. What did it mean for Eliza? What would happen now that he was here, ready to stake his claim in a story that had been unfolding without him? With heavy hearts, we drew closer again to the precipice, every breath a tether binding us to a future uncertain. I knew then that the next chapter of our lives lay stretched out before use, an unwritten airport full of fragile connections, vulnerable truths, and the risk of new betrayals at every turn. But as the weight of reality pressed down once more, a whisper of hope remained. It was woven through the heart of what had begun as despair, glimmering ever so faintly in the cracks of our collapsing world. The sterile scent of antiseptic clashed with the storm of emotions swirling inside me as I watched Thomas pace the waiting room floor, his jaw clenched in defiance. I didn't know him well, but the palpable distance he had created between himself and his family loomed like a tidal wave, threatening to crash over us all. "Where is she?" he barked again, intensity radiating from him. "What's happening? I need to see my sister." His face was a mask of anguish, masking something deeper, perhaps regret. I could feel the fissure left by years apart, yet Thomas seemed wholly unaware of the frantic hearts around him trying to maintain a semblance of hope. Mia's grip on my hand tightened as I caught her eye, a silent conversation flowing between us. I could sense she shared my concern for how this development would unfold. We were already on shaky ground, and the introduction of a family divide felt like throwing gasoline on a fire. Mr. Hayes stood tall, shoulders squared. "Thomas, we're doing everything we can. You just arrived, you'll have to wait like the rest of us." The calmness in his voice was admirable, but it did little to shatter the tension pulsing through the room. "I don't have time for this," Thomas snapped, his voice trembling with barely contained fury. "Eliza needs me." I interjected, deliberately stepping forward, trying to show authority that belied my own shrinking courage. "We all want to be there for her. But right now, it's important to give the doctors their space. They're doing their best." He shifted his gaze to me, uncertainty flickering across his face. I recognized the reflection of my own fears, the suffocating weight of waiting, of feeling utterly powerless. In that moment, surprising empathy welled within me. "I know it's hard. I can't imagine how you're feeling, but Eliza needs her family. Right now, that means all of us sticking together." There was a brief pause, the frenetic energy in the room softening just a fraction. I watched as Thomas took a step back, tension momentarily bleeding from his posture while the light of understanding flickered in his eyes. I just want to make sure she's okay," he muttered, the bluster from moments before diminishing. His vulnerability pierced through the fog of animosity that had held sway for so long. I, too, couldn't shake the thought of Eliza lying there isolated, scared, and in pain. If only it were that easy to mend the ties that had unraveled, to fasten together the gaping void between siblings. But another wave of anxiety washed over me as I turned my gaze toward Mia, catching her frown once more. It gnawed at the edges of our own relationship, strained by an unseen heaviness reminiscent of Eliza's unfortunate reality. The argument that had felt insurmountable in that last moment together now hung like swords above our heads. Yet amidst this turmoil, I spotted Claire across the room again, her presence grounding me momentarily. Still, the heaviness in my chest refused to lift. Just then, I heard a sudden commotion on the other side of the double doors. My heart raced as I turned, straining to focus on the voices beyond. As if the currents of fate were shifting again, two doctors rushed in, faces set hard with urgency, their hurried footfalls echoing in the hollow silence. "Megan!" One called, searching the waiting area frantically before locking eyes on Mr. Hayes. My heart dropped when I seared the name into my memory, realizing it was Eliza's best friend, someone who had, until now, remained hidden in the shadows of our devastating reality. "Where is Eliza?" Megan's voice broke through, loud and desperate, prompting every heart in the room to lurch. Her eyes glistened, emotion-filled and haunted. Knowing she'd lost a precious time with Eliza as the clock ticked, every tick felt like a hammer robbing them of more moments together, fueling the ache within all of us. "She's still in surgery," Mr. Hayes responded, the words tumbling from his lips like a fragile promise, filled with an uncertainty we could all sense. Megan ran a hand through her hair, taking deep breaths to steady herself as she approached. "I need to see her." She was so excited about her voice broke off, the resolve of her words crumbling. An entire friendship unspooled before us, diminishing into fear and heartache. "Who else is here?" She glanced at Thomas, anger flaring momentarily before retreating into masked concern. The pain in her expression bordered on betrayal, a reminder of the fissures her absence had left in their lives. I could only imagine how poorly the dynamics unfolded. Outrage mixed with shame swirled around us like a storm. "What have you done?" she admonished, the weight of judgment colliding with the gravity of the situation. It was clear the complexity of emotions had risen yet again, and at that moment, it seemed there would be no easy resolution for any of us. Just then, as if a dark secret wanted to unveil itself, the doctor who had checked on Eliza before blundered back into the room. He seemed to carry unspeakable news, his face pale against the white walls. I felt the shifting of atmosphere like a tornado brewing just out of sight, the kind that threatens to uproot lives and leave devastation in its path. "Damar Hayes, may I speak with you privately?" The doctor's timbre alone sent shockwaves through the waiting area. Panic settled like quicksand beneath my feet. The door felt like a point of no return, and as Mr. Hayes turned to follow the doctor, a shroud of foreboding cloaked the room. The remaining family oscillated between dread and anxiety, unable to look away from the direction in which they'd just departed. With thinly veiled desperation, I turned my gaze back to Mia, and for a fleeting moment, our eyes locked. We shared a silent question: what lay beyond that door? And more importantly, how would it break us if the answers shattered our hopes into unrecognizable pieces? Before I could confront the fear gnawing at my insides, the horrible truth loomed over us like a ravenous beast. Amidst the weight of our heartbreak, the fragile connections we fought to hold on to may already be slipping into uncharted waters, twisting painfully toward an abyss none of us could foresee. The fluorescent lights overhead flickered intermittently, an unwelcome reminder of the chaos that loomed beyond the sterile walls of the waiting room. The silence that followed the doctor's ominous request for Mr. Hayes to step into a private conversation was suffocating, amplifying every heartbeat, every furtive breath, every muted whimper of despair. Thomas shifted uneasily on his feet, grasping onto the edge of the tattered chair beside him as if it could offer some anchor against the tide of anxiety threatening to pull him under. I could see the internal battle raging within him, a maelstrom of anger, guilt, and fear. The struggle for control manifested in the way he bit down on his lower lip, the muscles in his jaw knotting with every pulse of trepidation that washed over him. Mia squeezed my hand tighter still, her eyes wide and filled with unshed tears. We were bound together, two souls weathering the same storm yet feeling the strain of our own unresolved issues. The tension had been mounting between us, a fraying rope that could snap with the slightest provocation. Still, the urgency of the situation forged an unspoken pact. We needed each other now more than ever. Why did he even come back? Thomas suddenly burst out, the words laden with disbelief and hurt. Where was he when she needed him? His voice echoed through the room, drawing attention from the few other waiting families, their sympathetic glances piercing through the haze of our collective grief. Enough. Mia's voice rang out, powerful in its demand for silence. She stepped forward, her chin raised defiantly, holding her ground against the wrath of her brother. This isn't about you, Thomas. Eliza isn't well. We have no time for fights. The room seemed to draw in a collective breath, the weight of our worry allowing no space for family grievances to be aired. I could sense the shift in atmosphere, how the pressing emotions mingled together, grief, guilt, regret forming a dense fog we all struggled to navigate. Thomas' shoulders slumped as if the fight was sucked from him. For a fleeting moment, I saw a glimpse of the boy who loved his sister fiercely, someone desperate to reconcile his absence. "You don't understand," he muttered, his voice softer now, fractured and raw. I never wanted this to happen." Across the room, Megan's breath caught as she listened, her eyes wide with a mix of anger and compassion. She crossed the distance between them, filled with urgency. "Then show us, Thomas. Don't let your anger consume you." Each moment stretched like an elastic band, taut and on the verge of snapping. I caught sight of Mr. Hayes re-entering from behind the ominous door, his expression unreadable, and dread engulfed me anew. Was he about to deliver news we all yearned to avoid? "Mr. Hayes, how is she?" Megan's voice trembled, her hands wringing together in anxious anticipation, his chin quivered slightly, as if harnessing the weight of a world upon his shoulders. "She's still stable," but a single word lost in the weight of his breath. The collective rush of oxygen escaping our lungs echoed like a funeral dirge, each soul silently grieving the possibility of loss yet again. But what? Thomas pressed, urgency rising once more as he stepped closer, inching forward in desperation. Mr. Hayes cleared his throat, searching for words that might bury a truth too heavy to bear. "The doctor feels Eliza may need more support than we anticipated." Support? The word echoed, its double meaning heavy between us. We all knew what that implied. She needed something more profound, something that would tether her for survival. Strange, outside the gravity of Eliza's fate, I caught a flicker of movement from the window, the soft flutter of bird wings as a rich blue jay landed on the ledge, a brilliant splash of color against the gray backdrop. Had it come to signify the hope we so desperately sought? Or was it simply a fleeting moment of distraction, an illusion amid the looming storm of uncertainty? Mia must have sensed my attention had drifted, her eyes following mine to the window. Do you think she'll pull through?" She whispered, that innate vulnerability surfacing again, cracking the armor of strength she had worn so bravely. "That we have to believe she will," I replied, though uncertainty gnawed at my confidence, as reality pressed in from all sides. But then Thomas spoke, his voice a fierce whisper, almost drowned by the cacophony of fear surrounding us. "We can't give up on her. I want." Just then, the doors swung open again, a doctor emerging with an urgent expression. "Mr. Hayes, we're going to need to discuss potential experimental treatments." And experimental? The word hung there, laden with ominous implications. What does that mean? Every heart in the waiting room was holding its breath. Hope and dread clashed, and though I felt the tension wrap tighter around us, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were on the precipice of an unraveling greater than any of us could foresee. As Mr. Hayes looked on, a palpable sadness painting his face, I felt a sinking deep within me. What if I began? But the sharp realization struck me before the words could escape my lips. What if Eliza wasn't going to make it? What if, in this storm of turmoil, we were grasping at a threadbare hope, one that would surely tear against the weight of truth? Before I could voice what lingered in all our minds, I turned to see Thomas staring intently into the halls, jaw clenched once more, but this time not in anger or defiance, rather a desperate determination that ignited a spark within me. Perhaps there was a sliver of a chance, a flicker of light cutting through the blinding darkness that encroached upon us, and yet, somewhere in the depths of my heart, a chilling sense of foreboding crept in, a nagging intuition that the storm was far from over. The sterile scent of antiseptic hung heavy in the air, a poignant reminder of the fragility of life. We sat in collective silence, the tension suffocating, as the doctor's words replayed in the back of my mind like a haunting refrain. Eliza needed experimental treatment, a term that blasted through the protective barrier I had built around my hope. It was a word that came with strings attached, tied to uncertainty and fear. Beside me, Mia was trembling, her face pale, as if the life had been drained from her. Thomas' fingers tightened around her shoulder, grounding her in the reality of the moment. "What if it doesn't work?" she whispered, barely able to manage the weight of her despair. As I looked around at the faces, each one etched with worry and confusion, I realized we were clinging to different kinds of hope. For some, it was the dream of a full recovery; for others, it was simply the chance to hold on a little longer to the person they loved. My own heart wrestled with the notion of hope, each beat opposing the crippling doubt that our efforts might not be enough. "Let's just talk to the doctor," Thomas urged quietly, his voice steadier now, infused with a resolve that felt infectious. "We need to understand what our options are. Eliza deserves a fight." The yearning in his tone, for knowledge, for answers, melted some of the ice that had encased my heart. I stood, the decision springing forth with clarity. "He's right. Let's gather our strength, educate ourselves. We owe it to Eliza." With our shared focus, we approached the young doctor who had emerged moments earlier, a hesitant but determined look anchored in his expression. "How experimental are these treatments?" Mia asked, her voice resolute, laced with an edge of fear. The doctor cleared his throat, swirling the papers in his hands as if seeking the right words to convey complex realities. "Some of these therapies carry risks. They might not guarantee success, and they sometimes come with side effects that are hard to manage. But we cannot rule out the potential for progress. For Eliza, we might be able to initiate a series of therapies that could change her situation." A flicker of hope ignited within me at the mention of potential. "What do we need to do?" I asked, desperation lending an intensity to my voice. "What does she need?" "We can't let this chance slip away." The doctor outlined a series of tests that could lead us closer to effective treatment: blood tests, genetic evaluations, scans to map Eliza's condition more clearly. Each step seemed a small victory, each detail a glimmer of light breaking through the thicket of uncertainty. Yet, as we listened, a surge of doubt siphoned through me. If the treatments had a chance to fail, what if they only widened the gulf of pain we were already enduring? I stole a glance at Thomas and Mia. Their expressions mirrored my turmoil, teetering on the line of hope and despair. Hours passed like an eternity. We found ourselves shifting between the waiting room and the doctor's office, where intricate discussions of dosages and potential side effects swirled around us. Each moment revealed a patchwork of uncertainty, the irony of fighting for a life while battling with how fragile that life had become. At one point, Thomas stepped out to catch a breath, the pressure of the evening weaving a tangible fabric between hope and imminent terror. In his absence, Mia's eyes began to glisten with tears. I reached for her hand, the warm touch igniting a sense of connection and mutual support. "Promise me we'll be okay," she murmured, her voice trembling. "No matter what happens with Eliza, we need to look after each other too." "Yes," I replied, though the certainty of my tone belied the knot in my stomach. "We will find a way to make it through, no matter how hard it gets." As darkness began to blanket the sky outside, a stillness enveloped us, punctuated only by the distant sounds of nurses moving purposefully about the hospital halls. But then, a pair of eyes caught my attention, familiar yet haunting. It was the woman from earlier, the one who had shared a silent moment of grief with us. She stood just inside the waiting room, bearing a thoughtful smile that hinted at an understanding of our struggle. "Can I help you?" she offered, her voice soft yet comforting that I hesitated. Who was she to ask? In this labyrinth of woes, the last thing we were looking for was charity. Yet, as she approached, the warmth in her demeanor unfurled a thread of compassion that felt profoundly needed. "I know this is difficult," she began, looking each of us in the eye, her gaze unwavering. "But I've been in your place, and I can assure you there can be joy at the end of this struggle. My daughter went through a similar ordeal, and real support makes all the difference. We were so lost, yet we found our way. Is she okay now?" Thomas interrupted, stepping back into our orbit, his posture softened. The woman nodded, a gentle encouragement wrapping around her words. "She walks now. She is thriving. I offer lunch on Saturdays for families navigating this journey. It's a chance to share stories, find solace in one another's experiences. You're all welcome." It felt like an unexpected gesture from someone who knew just how heavy a burden could weigh. I could see the flicker of curiosity in Thomas' eyes, mingling with the exhaustion painted across MIA's face. Perhaps there'd be a flicker of joy after all, a brief respite among the shadows. Just as I began to find solace in this unexpected kindness, the emergency sirens wailed outside like a distant storm, cutting through the fragile thread of hope that had woven itself among us. What was that? I whispered, panic suddenly clawing at my throat. The woman's expression shifted, a shadow crossing her features. The urgency in the air pressed down, compressing our fragile dreams into a singular reality filled with trepidation. As I glanced between Thomas and Mia, their eyes mirrored my own dread, unspoken fears brewing like a tempest. The doctor's silhouette moved back toward us, his face a tapestry of concern, and the fragile tether of hope we had begun to weave snapped with the sudden onset of uncertainty. Is everything all right? I managed to ask, the tremor in my voice stark against the wall of expectation. There's been a complication with Eliza's condition, he began, each word punctured with the weight of impending news. I braced myself, the air thickening with the threat of more change, more turmoil. We were locked in this emotional crossroads, no longer certain if we were sailing toward shore or pulled further into an abyss, and in that moment of waiting, we were all teetering on the edge of a revelation that could shatter what little peace we had fought to maintain. The sterile scent of antiseptic enveloped us as the doctor's eyes bore into ours, a quiet urgency hanging in the air like a storm cloud ready to burst. My heart raced, each beat resonating with unvoiced apprehension. The way he hesitated, his brow slightly furrowed, heightened the sense of dread that had begun to creep back in. There are some unexpected results from Eliza's tests, he finally uttered, the very sound felt like ice shattering underfoot. We found something unusual. What do you mean? I pressed, trying to infuse my voice with authority, but finding it trembling instead. Thomas and Mia shifted closer, an instinctual act of solidarity, yet their faces mirrored my own terror. There's a mutation that suggests a more aggressive form of the illness, the doctor revealed, his voice steady yet laced with the gravity of his words. This changes the approach we can take with her treatment significantly. We'll have to adjust everything accordingly. It was as if time froze in that moment. I felt Thomas's hand grip my shoulder, tight enough to convey both support and the shared weight of disbelief. Mia remained silent, her lips trembling as if she were trying to grasp the reality of what was happening. I had thought we had reached the interior of the storm, only to realize that the real tempest was still a breath away. What does that mean for her chances? Thomas finally asked, his voice hoarse yet resolute. The doctor looked between us, the empathy rolling off impalpable. This means we need to act swiftly, but I cannot mask the fact that this will be a more challenging road. If you decide to proceed with the experimental treatment, it may help her but will also involve increased risks. It still has potential, right? I asked, inching my way toward denial. It's not hopeless. The uncertainty swirled around me, threatening to drag me under, but I fought back desperately. With a heavy sigh, the doctor nodded, though the movement seemed weighted with both gravity and compassion. We will do everything we can. You'll need to prepare for this mentally and emotionally. It may be a long and arduous battle, but if anyone can pull through, Eliza can. As he spoke, I felt the fragile thread of hope flicker. We were still in a fight. But alongside it, the fear amplified its presence, shadowing every glimmer of optimism. I need a moment, Mia whispered, her voice scarcely rising above the symphony of emotions crashing within us. Without waiting for a response, she slipped away, her footsteps echoing down the stark hallway, leaving a void in her wake. Mia! I called, but she was already lost in the labyrinth of the hospital, the weight of our circumstances closing in around us. Let her go, Thomas said softly, his eyes still on the doctor. She'll need to process this too. I wanted to argue, to chase after her, but I realized that we were all searching for our different ways to break free from the agonizing grip of this reality. As the minutes stretched into an eternity, a thought gnawed at me. What if Eliza's situation was even worse than we had anticipated? What if we weren't ready for the fight? The ticking clock echoed within my mind, amplifying the urgency of our predicament. At that moment, the woman who had offered her kindness earlier returned to our side. Her presence felt like a beacon amidst the darkness. She wheeled in a small cart with steaming mugs of herbal tea, her warm smile breaking through the pallor of fear that cloaked us. "Thought you could use a moment," she said, setting the cups down gently. "I know it won't change everything, but sometimes a warm drink can offer a small bit of comfort." The warmth of the mug seeped through my fingers, grounding me momentarily. "Thank you," I managed, appreciating the unexpected kindness from someone who had once been a stranger but now felt like part of our threadbare support system. "That I had my own kind of battle," she shared, her gaze steady but soft. "You don't have to fight alone. You'll find strength in each other, and that's what will guide you through this." As I sipped the herbal infusion, it struck me how we were all in different phases of resilience. How insurmountable grief could be softened with unity, even in the most sterile of places. Just then, Mia reappeared, her face a canvas, first alarmed, then slowly transformed by resolve. "I heard what they said," she breathed, her eyes locked onto mine. "I know we have to help Eliza, but I can't shake the thought, what if we lose her? Then we will hold her memory tighter than we can imagine," I replied, each word like an oath spoken into the cosmic chasm of the unknown. "But we won't give up." "Not now." As we collectively sipped the tea, a silence cocooned us, a brief respite filled with unspoken promises. But that fleeting moment was shattered as the doctor returned, the same somber expression clouding his face yet again. "There's something else," he said, hesitating as he glanced between us, almost wishful that this news could rout him off course. "I just received confirmation that we may have a donor for one of the treatments, but it's not what you think." Mia's breath hitched, though Ma's eyes widened, and I felt both fear and a flicker of hope weaving its way back into my heart. "What do you mean?" The doctor lowered his voice, raising a brow of concern. "For the experimental treatment to have the best chance, Eliza may need to undergo a procedure that could be unconventional." My heart plummeted at the word unconventional. "What kind of procedure?" He hesitated, summoning strength in his demeanor. "A bone marrow transplant, but we're still waiting for final testing on the compatibility." A bone marrow transplant was a long shot, fraught with complications. My head spun as I battled the dark cloud of potential rejection playing through my mind. As he spoke the words, I felt the anguish surge again, another potential chasm opening before us. "What if it doesn't work?" I whispered, but that fear morphed into something else entirely, a fire igniting a lingering will to fight, no matter the darkness that loomed. Just then, Thomas took a leap forward, desperation coursing through his veins. "Well, get tested. Whatever it takes, if there's a chance to help her, well, do it together." The gravity of what we were deciding bore down on me. Each decision, each moment felt heavy, filled with the complexity of our shared emotions. My heart broke at the thought of putting Eliza through this turmoil, yet that longing to protect her surged through me, a visceral tether that wouldn't let go. In that tense and poignant moment, the enormity of the possible choices ahead bore down on us like a weight we could neither escape nor fully understand. To fight or to surrender, we were collectively facing the uncertainty of existence itself. With one pivotal decision looming ahead, I felt like we were standing not just at the edge of a cliff, but peering into a chasm, each revelation cutting deeper than the last. What lay beneath the surface could drive us to despair or propel us to heights we had never imagined reaching, but the cost of that journey remained painfully unclear. And as the doctor prepared to explain the next steps, time once again felt suspended around us. We were all just a heartbeat away from everything changing. The sterile smell of antiseptic wove through the air as I navigated the wait between hope and despair, each moment punctuated by uncertainty. Thomas had just offered to be tested for a potential match, and the weight of that choice hung like a heavy cloud, obscuring the light that had once punctured through our tumultuous reality. The direction of our lives depended on a fragile thread, fragile like Eliza's condition, fragile like our bonds, but could it be strong enough to survive the storm that was threatening to tear everything apart? As the doctor provided details on what the process would entail, my heart thudded violently in my chest. Bone marrow, the very essence of life, a gift that could heal those ravaged by illness. And yet the implications weighed heavily. Would I be asked to sacrifice a part of myself, too? That question lingered, yet my resolve began to strengthen like a flame against the wind. "I want to be tested as well," I blurted out, the urgency driving my words. The doctor looked at me, surprise etched across his face mingling with cautious admiration. "Are you certain?" he asked, his eyes revealing the depth of his concern. "More than anything," I declared, a hidden strength rising within me own that had been forged not just in my desire to save Eliza but in the collective weaving of our lives. I wasn't going to stand on the sidelines of this battle, I would be part of the fight. Mia placed a steadying hand on my shoulder, a reflection of our shared determination. "We're in this together," she said softly, before turning to the doctor. "What do we need to do?" As the doctor began to outline the procedures for testing and possible protocols, time seemed to blend, moments merging into a singular purpose. I couldn't help but glance at Thomas again, and for the first time, I recognized the fear that had slowly begun to unfurl within the depths of his determination. It was a fear I shared, and it ran deeper than simply losing Eliza. It was the battle we all fought, grappling with our pasts, the guilt of absence, of distant relationships fraying at the seams, burdened by regrets that had taken root. But here we were, bound together in a moment far greater than ourselves, breaking walls that had long kept us apart. For perhaps the first time, real unity tremored in the air like an electric current, steadfast and unyielding. We would face down uncertainty, be it in the form of tests or treatments. Hours stretched into an eternity, the administration for the tests weaving its way around us in a whirlwind of activity. We parted ways momentarily, Thomas going to another room, Mia following him, while I stayed behind to undergo my own tests. As I sat in that sterile chair, waiting for the nurses to finish the routine, my mind drifted back to the history we had all shared. Eliza wasn't just a friend, she was a reminder of innocence, of laughter and even of pain. I recalled our ridiculous adventures, the picnics that turned into spontaneous paint fights, her piercing laughter as we stood drenched in painted smiles. It was those moments that made the ache of this situation feel almost unbearable. For each painful moment spent praying for her recovery, a memory haunted me, the what-ifs crashing down like a relentless tide. What if I had chosen better words the last time we spoke? What if I had been able to hold on to her longer, before she fell? The moment finally came when I was led to a testing room. As the nurse drew my blood, I felt a strange sense of liberation. It was as if shaking off the remnants of my past and embracing my present. I was doing this for Eliza not just as a desperate act, but as a person finally willing to stand in the uncertain light of hope. But as moments turned into hours, waiting for news weighed heavily upon us. Once settled back into the waiting room, I sought Thomas and Mia, who had returned too, their faces tinged with the pallor of anxiety. "Did they tell you anything?" Mia asked, her voice trembling slightly. I shook my head. "Not yet," I said, but even as those words escaped from my lips, they felt heavy with the premonition of dread. Minutes dripped by like haphazard raindrops tapping against a window, unpredictable and endlessly slow. The door swung open again, the familiar figure of the doctor entering our space like a herald of fate. Time froze around us, my heart thundering as I sought answers from the grim expression planted on his face. "Mr. Hayes? There's been a complication regarding the tests," he began, and with those simple words, my heart sank. The precarious thread of hope I had carefully woven began to unravel. "Your test results are in, and while there is potential for a match, there are some complications, risks you should be made aware of." Mia gasped softly, grasping my hand with a grip of urgency. "What kind of risks?" Thomas's voice came out low yet fierce, as if steadying himself against a wall of accusation. As with any such procedure, there can be adverse reactions, both to postoperative complications and the possibility of our attempt being fruitless, the doctor explained, weighing his words with precision. "It's difficult to assess compatibility wholly right now given what we know, but know that if we go down this path, we must be prepared." "Prepared?" I echoed, dread pooling in my stomach. "For what?" "For losing more than we bargained for," he stated. The room felt stifling, all air sucked from it, every breath coming painfully. With each word he spoke, a deeper apprehension coursed through my veins. But deep down, beneath the layers of shattering fear, something else began to rise: the memory of Eliza's laughter, the bond we all shared, the bonds yet to be mended. "Well, fight for her," I blurted out, the declaration cutting through the palpable uncertainty. "Whatever the risks are, we're not turning back now. We can face this together." The resolve in that moment felt like a chain, binding us once again to a purpose greater than ourselves. But just then, as I looked around at the three of us, Thomas' eyes fierce, MIA's determined yet haunted gaze, hope flickered in the depths of despair. We would not only fight for Eliza, but rediscover what it meant to lift each other up, to embrace our own frailties, transcending into unity no matter the outcome. As we steeled ourselves for the journey ahead, enveloped by a tempest of emotions tied to love, loss, and the fragile tendrils of hope, I took a deep breath, my heart echoing a shared vow: no matter what awaited us, we were all in this fight together. In that shared silence, I found clarity. The real battle was not whether Eliza would survive, but how her story would intertwine our lives in a profound journey toward redemption, not just for her, but also for ourselves. And as I stood there, surrounded by the remnants of despair woven together with threads of hope, the one truth pierced through the weight of my chest like sunlight breaking through dark clouds: we would hold on to love and embrace its complexities like a lifeline, lighting our way through an uncertain future, determined that we'd emerge on the other side victorious, resilient, and whole. In that, we found comfort, and in one another, we found strength. No escape, just acceptance, a moment to breathe against the tide. And perhaps, just perhaps, Eliza would find her way back to us, too, singing her laughter back into our lives as life taught us to stand again. As I held on to that glimmering possibility, I knew we would weather whatever came our way together, weaving a tapestry of hope that would forever bind us, no matter the outcome. Love in all its messiness remained the prevailing truth, and with each passing moment, I could feel Eliza's spirit guiding us home. "We're going to be okay," I whispered softly, conviction coursing through me, the horizon stretching before us, and the promise of healing beckoning just over the invisible line of fear. Life was fragile, but the bonds we shared were infinitely powerful. I believed that in that moment, no matter the uncertainties ahead, we were not alone, weaving our stories into one community of love, fighting together to live in this chaotic, beautiful journey. And so we would continue this fight, finding ways to heal and learn, with Eliza's laughter leading the way.